Welcome into the Sacramento Kings post-game recap presented by Sactown Sports 1140. My name is Brenden Nunez. We're taking over in place of Chris Watkins today, who is with Alan Stiles in Vegas covering the Super Bowl. And obviously a pretty tough game for the Kings today, guys. They fall 133 to 120 to the Detroit Pistons, who coming into the night had only 6 wins on the season. They had a 6-43 record, improved to 7-43 tonight with this win over the Kings. And it was a, pretty convincing one. They got out to the Kings. I thought had a decent start in that first quarter. The second unit, when De'Aaron Fox came out of the game, I thought the offense stalled a little bit, which hurt their defense. But then you look at that second quarter, Detroit outscores the Kings 39-27. Third quarter, really good run from the Kings to close out that third quarter. I believe it was a 17-5 run there. And then the fourth quarter just totally falls apart, where Jaden Ivey, of all people, guys, Jaden Ivey scores 19 points in the fourth quarter. And the player that Sacramento could have picked, just saying. This was, definitely there was some discourse surrounding that, the time of the draft there between Ivey and Keegan Murray, and Ivey ends with 37 points along with 7 assists and 6 rebounds. It is easily the best game of his career. And don't mean this as any shade at Keegan Murray. I think that he's maybe not proven to be the correct choice necessarily, because Ivey could still obviously become a very, very good player. But I think that obviously Keegan is a really good fit for the Sacramento team, so it's no shade on him. It's just hilarious fashion to not only lose to the Pistons, obviously, but to do it while Jaden Ivey scores 37 and the guy the Kings picked instead of Ivey has 0, gets in foul trouble, has 4 fouls by, let's see, where are we at? Midway through the third quarter, I believe. Struggling to find it here in my notes, but got 3 fouls really quick. Picked up a 4th one pretty late as well. Anybody in here, by the way, if you have any sort of questions, feel free to leave them in the chat, and I'd be happy to cover them during this before I end up making my way down to some of these post-game press conferences. But really a tough one. The Pistons knocked down 17 threes in this game of their 31, and comparatively, sure, the Kings made 15 threes, but they did it on, so they only made 2 less threes, but the Kings took 13 more attempts to do so. So it was a tough one. Fox didn't have a very good game. It really was Malik Monk, Domantas Sabonis, and even Kevin Huerter who really kept the offense going in this one. I thought that it was a little, I was going to say excessive how much they ran Malik Monk pick and roll with Domantas Sabonis, but honestly, it was warranted. I think that he was playing really well and the offense was struggling. I thought that Fox really did try to turn it up in that fourth quarter. He was more aggressive, not amazing results. I'm sure he had a few more turnovers than he really would have liked throughout the course of this. Only ended up with 2, but a couple bobbles and just plays that he could have had a little bit quicker and better decision-making, I guess, for just helping the Sacramento Kings team down the stretch here. It's a really tough one, guys. It's really poor defense, and I think their offense certainly doesn't help them in the process of that. I think that there's a lot of moments where it's taking a quick shot early in the shot clock, and the Kings are very okay and actually encourage take your open shots, no matter how early in the shot clock it is. If you take it early in the shot clock, that just means they're going to get more shots up throughout the course of the game. Logic is sound, but it needs to be open shots. And I think they should be a little more than like just open, maybe not quite wide open, but somewhere in like a middle ground, like decently open, if that's what we want to call it or whatever. But I think that if you have that much time on the shot clock, you could take a little bit more to search for a better shot. And I just think there's specifically moments where Detroit's going on a run and it's like somebody tries to be the hero and takes a shot early in the shot clock, trying to slow down the momentum of the other team. And it doesn't really end up working. Or if that shot doesn't go down, because when it does, it works really well. I think Malika has been good at that. We've seen Fox hit, I think back to the Golden State game at the beginning of this road trip, Fox walked into some really big threes as the Chase Center crowd was really getting into it. So, I mean, when they go down, I think they are helpful. But if you're taking those early shots while the other team is going on a run and they are not converted, then that's just going to help them excel their run and get out in transition. The Kings transition defense was really, really bad today. Like, so many guys were just flying by or falling for pump fakes, or, Jaden Ivey, I think the one thing that he does really, really well in transition specifically is decelerate. And honestly, he looked like De'Aaron Fox out there. Like, he just takes one step and he still has his speed to him. And then as the second one is landing, he just slows down so much and players fly by and he goes up and shoots it on the way down. And that's exactly what you see De'Aaron Fox do. And Ivy was great at that. Totally just was going into guys' chest in transitions. And there was just not much resilience really from the Kings on the defensive end of the floor. It's absolutely a cop-out, but I will say that a lot of people point out the fact that the first home game back after a road trip can be really tough. And, some people try to explain the logic. I don't really buy it, but, for what it's worth, I guess people throw that in there. People in the chat here, obviously we have the trade deadline tomorrow, by the way, at noon Pacific time. So if you have any sort of trade questions, feel free to throw them in here. Somebody asked Royce O'Neal in a Kings jersey by tomorrow, Sim Kaler. Maybe, man. I don't know. I mean, I think that we're at the point where I'm not expecting much from the Kings. I think that if they do make a move, I would expect it to be pretty minimal. I think something like a Royce O'Neal, like a Torrey Craig, or like a Najee Marshall, So I think those are the type of guys that I would really be not expecting, but just kind of keeping an eye on, I guess, because I don't think we're going to get big moves. I think that we're talking about players that probably cost you second round picks and matching salary, so I think that is kind of where we're at when it comes to potential deals. And there's a chance they do nothing. And I think that would be fine. I think that they have time to figure out how good this core can be and who is the additional piece that they want to, the additional primary piece that they want to add to this, because you still have a couple years before Keegan is off of his rookie contract. He's going to get a substantial extension when that time comes, probably 30 plus million, to be honest, if he continues at this trajectory. And the Kings got to figure out, okay, who's going to be that other guy that is our 4 large salaries? Because right now, say you lock it into a Zach LaVine, for example, I got to look at exactly how many years he has, but it puts you in a weird spot where you better be sure that is the guy, because your flexibility afterwards could be really tough. So I think the big moves, they don't seem to love anything out there, all price considered. So I personally am expecting, if anything, more small second round draft picks being included, and the smaller salaries like a Davion Mitchell or a Chris Duarte, who injured himself pretty bad in warmups today, by the way. I believe, my understanding is he was warming up. James Ham tweeted this out and was in the locker room when this happened, so he saw it, but I did not. That Duarte was apparently warming up in the other gym, the practice facility, and came into the locker room on crutches, very swollen ankle. Sounds like it might be a little while for Chris Duarte, and I don't know how that could potentially affect him at the deadline. I don't think it really does, to be honest. Like, say it's a grade 2 ankle sprain, you're talking 4 to 6 weeks, sort of Alex Len timeline that we just dealt with, or we even saw De'Aaron Fox deal with that a little bit early in the game, or earlier in the season. So, I don't think that really affects much. But again, I think you're talking second round picks and Davion Mitchell, Chris Duarte, maybe like a Sasha Vezenkov, or I don't think Trey Lyles, but like maybe, so definitely more so the range that I think we're talking about, rather than a Kevin Huerter or Harrison Barnes, although those absolutely could still happen. I'm just saying I'm not at the point where I'm expecting it, but 0 people expected Tyrese Halliburton to be traded, and that happened out of nowhere. So I'm not going to pretend to to know exactly what is about to happen here within these next 24. We don't even have 24 actually. What, it's at noon tomorrow. We got like 15 hours until the deadline. I'm kind of hoping that we get a late night Woj bomb tonight and keep people awake a little bit, and it'll be interesting. So we'll see. Do we have some more questions in the chat here, either regarding this game or the trade deadline? I'm happy to hear from you guys. Just to kind of keep going through this here, I thought that Domas played pretty well. He extended his double-double streak to, I believe it's 33 games now, which is cool. I honestly don't really care. His production is great. I don't really care about the double-doubles, even though they can be impressive statistics as a total, and that shows his consistency. It definitely highlights that. But 30, 12, 7 tonight. He's been playing really well. People mentioned Davion Mitchell, that Davion played well tonight. Yeah, I thought that he was solid tonight as well. Excuse me. He's played, I believe, in the last 9 straight games, if I have that right, which is notable. I feel like that's been one of the rotational changes that we've seen recently, is exactly that. And Davion playing in place of Keon Ellis, I think does give you a little bit more defense. Offensively, I think that they're just different. Keon is a good 3-point shooter, while on the other hand, you see Davion being quick. And while the handle isn't amazing, I don't think, outside of like maybe the one first initial move, he's really able to get in the paint and kind of make plays from there. So solid Davion game. I think that he's an interesting study as this deadline approaches. Like I've seen, obviously the Kings got linked to DeLon Wright a little while ago, for example, and all three, pick any of the three of Davion Mitchell, Chris Duarte, or Sasha Vezenkov, any one of them could be matching salary for DeLon Wright straight up. And I don't think I would do Davion for an expiring DeLon Wright, to be honest. Like, if they did, I could talk myself into it just fine. And I think for Davion's sake, it'd probably be good for him to go to a team like I hate to say it, but like the Wizards, a place where he can go and really get a lot of freedom not post game, get a lot of freedom during the game. I think it'd be helpful for him to be able to get the opportunity to just get a rhythm, to play through his mistakes. I think would be really good for him. But the team control, the youth and still potential upside that he has, just intrigues me a little bit more than half a year of DeLon Wright. So we'll kind of have to see there. Just continuing to go through the chat here. Sabonis is definitely the best player on the Kings by far. Monty probably not going to make a move and wait till offseason, which means they're likely first round exits. I again would not be surprised if they didn't make a move. What I will push back a little bit is that, while I agree with you, they are likely first round exits, there's a world where this team gets further. We don't really know the ceiling of this group currently. We know that we saw them play well, I thought, in that Golden State series. And obviously they lost game 7 in fairly convincing fashion. And that's not exactly what you want to see. But I think they very much had a chance to win that series. And if they win that series last year, what happens against the Lakers? We don't really know. And I'm not saying they would have beat the Lakers, but we do not know. And I think that if they beat the Lakers, their journey absolutely would have stopped at the Nuggets, obviously. But there's a world where you keep the exact same roster and you're in the second round and in a pretty competitive second round matchup. So, I would say I don't think it's the end of the world if they don't make a move. Again, everybody's locked up. And I think the worst thing you could do is make the wrong move than make no move at all, because the wrong move will really set you back compared to standing idle. I think would not. Now, there's a world where, maybe the locker room starts to get a little bit iffy, or ownership is getting impatient, or things like that. Those are the two things that typically come into my mind about what could be some sort of internal/external, I guess, pressures for the front office. But I don't think that we're at that point. And I don't think tonight's loss to the Pistons, albeit it was gross, it was a disgusting game to watch, really. I don't think that changes the way that you approach the deadline at all, really. Brenden, what are your thoughts about Monty keeping the core and signing G League players? Stockton looks good. Yeah, I mean, what I will add is that right now, today was Keon's 47th game where he was an active player. He's a two-way, and he can only get 250 on the year as a two-way player. So the Kings would need to convert his contract to a full, normal, like regular contract, a NBA Sacramento contract if he's going to play more than, what did I just say, 3 games this season? 3 more games this season. So with no Juan Toscano Anderson on the roster anymore after that 10-day, the Kings have an open roster spot. They have 1 day until that, or, you know, tomorrow is the trade deadline, like 15 hours away. So I would imagine after the trade deadline settles a little bit, we'll see what if the Kings do anything. And, you know, the current open roster spot could mean that you get one more player than you send out in return, or you stay exactly where you're at. I think you'd wait a couple games, really try to push that limit with Keon to that 50 game mark from Sacramento's perspective, to see if there's anything that pops up in the buyout market. For example, after all these trades go through and people try to start to sort through their rosters. But I don't think it'll be long before I would imagine that Keon will get converted to that full contract, since like I said, he has 3 games left before he cannot be active in another game for Sacramento, since he is on a two-way. But outside of that, I don't think that really any of the Stockton players stand out to me. I think that Stanley Johnson does interest me a bit. So I do kind of see it, but I don't think that these guys are necessarily going to be difference makers when it comes to, not difference makers. I wouldn't even be sure if he's a rotation player in the NBA currently. I would bet that he's not, if I had to guess. You know, I think that Kessler Edwards, for example, is probably a better option currently. And I think that says a lot, because I think that sometimes, you know, Kessler has his shortcomings, is what we'll say there. This was a tough one, guys. This is a very tough one. When you see Alec Burks has 25 points, and he's somebody that's played really well this year. He shot the ball really well. I will say, I know he and assistant coach Luke Laux have a good relationship. I think that Laux was assigned to Alec Burks when they were both in Golden State together. So anytime Detroit comes into town, they seem to have a, you know, last year and this year, I guess these being the only 2 with 1 a season where that happens with these East Coast teams, but they seem to have a little fun moment pregame. And there was a shot Burks hit in the corner and looked like he turned in front of the Kings bench, looked like he turned, and I would guess said something to Laux, or just shot him a look or something like that. But yeah, Burks played great tonight. Jalen Duren does what he does, 20, 15, and 6. And really you didn't get enough from De'Aaron Fox, who 5 of 14 is just not going to cut it. Now, I think sometimes you can just have these sort of nights. You know, I don't feel like he was out there forcing it and making bad plays or anything. I just feel like for the most part, he missed a couple easy ones. He missed a couple layups. I'm sure he'd like to have back. The 0-4 from the free throw line is pretty inexcusable. But yeah, that's not great. Not going to lie. And then, like, Keegan shot the ball 4 times. You know, everybody loves Harrison Barnes getting more involved, and I know that's only 8 points tonight. I think a large majority, if not all of those, came in the first quarter, really, for Harrison. Sorry, 2 points. Wow, okay, I'm totally off there. 2 in the first, 2 in the second, and 4 in the third. They were definitely trying to go to some post-ups and switches every once in a while and get Harrison a little bit more involved. But as some of these other guys get more shots, you know, tonight's a night where Malik shot the ball 21 times. Domas shot the ball 17 times. Kevin's 11. There's only so many shots that can go around. Trey shot the ball 13 times, by the way. He played great tonight. 5 of 10 from 3, 19 points. I thought he was phenomenal tonight. Him and Malik as a bench mob end up scoring 32 points together, you know, on, let's see, I'm not good with math here. 16 of 34 from the field. So I thought that they played pretty well as a duo, and that's kind of what you hope to get out of them, really. But yeah, definitely interesting. And somebody asked here, Street Thumper, of any more minutes for Len or McGee. It has been weird to me that Alex Len hasn't been playing, and JaVale McGee has definitely been the backup center of choice as of late, kind of really since the start of this road trip. But I don't think that the 3 times that we didn't see McGee is when they stuck with Trey Lyles at that backup 5 to go small, and that's in Golden State, where you're against I think it's like Trace Jackson Davis or Dario Saric or a smaller backup big. In Indiana, where you're talking about Obi Toppin, you're talking about Jabari Walker as your backup 5. And then tonight against the Pistons, where you could see Mike Muscala or Danilo Gallinari at the backup 5. So for the most part, it seems like JaVale McGee is the backup big of choice. But in situations where they want to match going small because the other team is doing it, that they might stick with Trey Lyles. And, I don't love just kind of matching the other team. I think that sometimes playing your own style and trying to get them to match you can be beneficial, but it's a fine line, right? Because you definitely have to be able to do both. I thought that small ball was definitely not the issue. I know there's a big discrepancy in the rebounds. You look at 48 for the Pistons and 33 for the Kings, but the Kings missed, 45 of 95, and the Pistons go 47 of 84. So there's just more shots, more misses that the Kings put up that are easier defensive rebounds for the Pistons. Really, the offensive rebound discrepancy is not big. The Pistons beat them by 1 with 6 compared to Sacramento's 5. That's not super standout or anything like that. So really, I think the defensive effort in this one, you really look at that second quarter and then the fourth were just bad. Like, they had a fine first quarter, not great. You could have cleaned it up. That's when Pistons had 4 of their, what they ended with 6 offensive rebounds. 4 of those came in that first quarter. Like, I thought that could have been cleaned up, right? But horrible second quarter, really, like practically nothing that went well. And then you got a fourth quarter that was just atrocious, where the Kings are, not taking great shots, I don't think. Some of them weren't horrible, but I thought that a lot of them also had to do with, after it, get back on defense. Make sure that your first priority is stopping the ball in transition on the other end, and really try to just not give easy ones, not let Jaden Ivey get 19 points in the fourth quarter. I just think there's no way where that really should have been allowed. But appreciate everybody that hopped in here. Might be doing more of these in the future. There's a chance this happens after the Denver Nuggets game in a couple days as well, where we'll have a little bit of trade deadline stuff to talk about. So I'm going to get down there into the post-game press conference, but appreciate everybody that stopped by here. Sorry that you had to witness that tough game where the Pistons get their 7th win of the season, but appreciate you hopping in here and kind of venting with me in the chat, guys. Going to hop in post-game, but we'll definitely talk to you guys later. Appreciate it.